the first nightclub that was really built on the Sunset Strip was a place called La Boheme, and they had an illegal hooch cellar during Prohibition. So people were able to drink on the Strip, and so LA was a little bit provincial, let's put it that way, in the old days. And so this unincorporated area on the Strip, they had 2 gambling joints. And the guys who ran them were run out of town, and they went to Las Vegas and built Las Vegas. So you see, this unincorporated part of town was important, you know. And that freewheeling feeling still lasted into the 50s and the 60s. It just, as the generations changed, it went from Hollywood glamour movie star era to beatnik era, kind of modern jazz, Miles Davis kind of era, and folk music became popular in the 50s.
Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them, everyone.
And that was all up on the Strip. And then in the early 60s, the go-go, the dancing thing started to happen. The Peppermint Lounge in New York City brought the twist craze national, and we had some twist clubs here, and eventually the Byrds played at one of the twist clubs, and they changed everything. And after the Byrds, it was the Doors, Frank Zappa, Buffalo Springfield Love, you name it, just a lot more experimental type music, and that's what I cover in the Ride on Sunset Strip book.
When you mention those bands to me, the first place I think of is the Whiskey. Was it really a go-go joint in the beginning?
Yeah, it started in 1964 as strictly a place for people to go dance, and the house band Johnny Rivers made a live album there, and it was a hit album, so it got a lot of notoriety. And the go-go dancers were also really novel. They were almost like a throwback to the 20s, if you think about it. The flapper kind of thing. The girls in the cages looked like they were wearing sort of a flapper dress. This girl, Joni Labine, designed a flapper dress for the Go-Go Girls, and they all wore that, and that was copied by television. So when you saw on variety shows or teen dance shows go-go dancing, it was all based on the go-go dancers as the Whiskey Go-Go circa 64. But the interesting thing about Whiskey Go-Go's, they didn't really have that fantastic of bands until 1966. It was just kind of like a house band, go there and dance kind of thing. But when the Byrds broke at a place called Ciro's in 1965, the whole Strip changed. And everybody started opening up brand new clubs that were a little bit more pop art and psychedelic, so to speak.
Okay, we're talking 66. What other clubs were there? Ciro's, the Whiskey, what else?
Well, the ones that opened new on the Strip were like It's Boss, which Ciro's was an old 40s nightclub, and it completely had a turnaround in 65. Right after the Byrds broke there, like, we're going to make a brand new club, and it's going to be called It's Boss, and it's going to have pop art on the walls and so on and so forth, and all the top hit acts of the 60s played there. There was another joint down Sunset Boulevard in the old Hollywood called the Hullabaloo, which was a similar thing. It was an old club called the Earl Carroll Theater or the Moulin Rouge earlier, and it became this, pop psychedelic club that the Yardbirds played.
Once upon a time, this was the magnificent showplace called the Earl Carroll Theater, where it was inscribed through these portals past the most beautiful girls in the world. And outside were Hollywood's greatest names and signature. When the showplace became the Moulin Rouge, and it was one of the most famous nightclubs in the world. Now it's a showplace for the Palace Guard, the Mamas and Papas, them, and the Yardbirds. And where once entered...
And then the Whiskey A Go-Go got hip. They started booking cooler bands, and then they opened a club called The Trip. And The Trip had all the Motown groups playing there, and they also had the Velvet Underground with Nico and Andy Warhol. Right across from what you know now as Mel's, used to be Ben Frank's, directly across the street was the Playboy building on one, and then the Trip on the other. 3 blocks from the Whiskey Go-Go. Like I always like to think that, okay, you could have gone to go see them at the Whiskey Go-Go with either the Buffalo Springfield, the Doors, or Captain Beefheart opening, and then walk down the street, and seen the Velvet Underground with Frank Zappa opening. I mean, that's what it was like. And you're not going to get anything like that anymore in any city. I mean, they're never going to be that much condensed cool. I can't imagine it. The only other thing like that historically is the old New Orleans of the, around the turn of the century and after, into the 20s, and 52nd Street, New York, during the late 30s to like about 1951.
What caused the riot?
Well, it